Tonight, Trump's tariffs send financial markets into freefall. China retaliates, escalating the global trade war.
It's an economic Armageddon that was unleashed by Trump.
But the president shows no signs of backing down.
Welcome to the News Hour. U.S. markets plunged today in the wake of President Trump's announcement of new tariffs. Many stocks had their worst single day since the pandemic in 2020.
We've never seen a week like this one. Whipsawing markets, punitive tariffs imposed and then paused, at angry China, fears of recession.
Well, those who have retired or are near retirement have been watching the stock market freefall in distress and now confusion over the about face on.
Hello there, I hope that you're doing well. Welcome to this new video. During this video I'm going to be discussing a very controversial topic with you, and that's the topic of market manipulation. Over the course of these past 2 months there has been a lot of manipulation taking place in the markets, and that's what I would like to discuss with you today. Now, before we dive into the discussion, I would first like to invite you to go into this discussion with an open mind. Meaning it doesn't matter if you trade based upon supply and demand, it doesn't matter if you trade based upon indicators or ICTS concepts or my concepts. I would like to go into this discussion with an open mind. And the reason being is because over the course of these past couple of months, there has been a lot of manipulation which has taken place on the financial markets. We saw the Nasdaq drop nearly towards 16,000 at the beginning of April, and now the Nasdaq is near new all-time highs. Now, what has happened is that the markets dropped significantly due to the news of tariffs being put on a lot of different countries in the beginning of April. This was referred to as Liberation Day, where President Trump came out and stated that the US would put a lot of tariffs on a lot of countries. But when it comes to what has happened is that the markets were covered very quickly. How is this possible? How is it possible that there's such a major news event and that causes so much panic in the world, but yet the markets rise quickly afterwards? From a logical perspective, if you're purely looking at the news releases themselves, doesn't really make sense. However, when you blend understanding of the following with the news releases, it's actually quite logical why it happened. Because when it comes to market manipulation and the discussion which we're about to have, I would like you to understand that if we have the perspective that all markets are rigged and that there are entities in control of the delivery of price, these entities use different algorithms to deliver price and make sure that the price is being offered around specific prices around each time, each day or each week or each month, etc. When we have that perspective and you begin to think about who is in control of the release of, for example, media statements, who's in control of the headlines in the newspapers, who's in control of that what goes viral, so to say, on social media, etc. And you begin to blend these different elements, all of a sudden it begins to make sense why there's a lot of negative news which came out in the beginning of this second quarter. And the reason being is because when you think about it, when the markets drop that heavily, that's exactly what smart money needs in order to fulfill their long positions. Why? Because in that panic, retail turned very bearish, meaning the average Joe was looking at these news releases which came out as, oh damn, the world is going to come to an end. The markets are going to continue dropping forever. I need to get out of my positions now. That was the thought process that a lot of retail money traders had. And that's what the normal person was led to believe as a result of the news flow. Meaning, as a result of that was what was being discussed on the media, on the social media, etc. But it's exactly in that fear that was induced to the masses that smart money positioned themselves wrong. And therefore what you saw taking place was that after a short period in which that fear was very high, where there was a lot of uncertainty with regards to what was going to happen moving forward with regards to the tariffs, you saw that smart money was actively positioning themselves wrong. And what happened as a result of that, once enough positions were filled, was that all of the sudden the news flow began to change, where instead of negative news, it became obvious that this whole tariff situation could get handled rather quickly. And that right there is something which I would like to think about. How is it possible that there's such a big policy shift within such a short period of time, where at first the US goes out and basically tries to go into full trade wars with a lot of different countries, and after just a few short weeks, it seems like everything has cooled down. It's almost as if everything was predefined and as if it was already planned out, right? So that is something which I would like you to think about at first. Secondly, what I would like you to think about is the following. How is it possible that in advance of these major news releases of the tariffs being either delayed or being completely removed on certain countries, how is it possible that in advance of those announcements, what we saw taking place on the options, that the call volume spiked through the roof? Meaning, just a few minutes in advance of specific announcements, throughout the past couple of months, we saw the amount of calls which were open go through the roof. How is that possible? That's a result of people already knowing what would be released. And that's something which I would like to think about. And this means that the idea of the markets being free, so to say, and price being random, and that the markets just move based upon supply and demand, is completely false. Because think about it, right? How is it possible that there are certain entities which know in advance of what's about to come out, what's gonna come out? Do you really think that when a major company goes out and releases its earnings and the financial statements come out, etc., that there aren't entities which already knew what would be in that earning release? Of course there are. So when you think about all these different elements which I'm bringing up during this discussion, I would like to start putting all these different puzzle pieces together. And the reason why I'm discussing this today with you is because of the fact that these past couple of months have been textbook manipulation followed by distribution. Because when it comes to the paradigm which I have when it comes to financial markets, I believe that all markets are rigged. And because I have that belief, I'm looking at the markets from a completely different perspective than the masses. Meaning, when the masses turn bearish, that's when I'm beginning to look for signs that confirm to me bullish. When the markets turn very bullish, that is when I begin to look for signs that the markets are likely going to be bearish. So the way I use this logic throughout the past couple of months was due to the following. On the 21st of April, it became obvious to me that the low was in for Nasdaq, and from that moment in time, I began buying US stocks. Now, the reason why I began buying US stocks has been discussed prior, meaning I released a lecture prior to this video on my YouTube channel. You can just check it out, it's out there, in which I explained how, technically speaking, the whole run up higher, the whole expansion, the massive run up higher was anticipated and how we played in on that. Because a specific stock named Meta, prior Facebook, was showing signs of manipulation taking place relative to the other Magnificent Seven. And from that moment in time, that's when we began buying Meta. And Meta has ran up higher significantly afterwards, following, of course, the Nasdaq's movements as well. Nasdaq ran all the way from about 500 all the way up to about 650, 660 within just a month time. Personally, I entered Meta around 520, and it has been a beautiful run up higher. But when it comes to the perspective of this basically belief that, okay, all markets are rigged and the news gets utilized to basically manipulate, I would like to think about, okay, how is it possible that the US goes out and imposes a crazy tariff on China? It was a tariff of about 145%. And just about 1 to 2 weeks later, the Chinese and the Americans come together in Switzerland and they decide to completely just, decrease the tariff significantly. Why? Because it's exactly in that fear that followed after that initial news release that smart money began buying whilst retail was looking to sell heavily. So the perspective which I have when it comes to narrative is that my focus is on the following. My focus is on recognizing where the masses are being led to believe a certain idea. When I look at the charts then, and the chart is telling me a completely different story, meaning where the masses are being led to believe that the markets are bearish, I'm looking at the charts and I look at the charts as, hey, we're actually bullish. Because what's happening there is that retail is being trapped, retail is being manipulated, and that manipulation is required in order for smart money to fulfill their orders. So do you see how I'm basically going against every single other basically theory out there when it comes to why markets go up and down. I'm purely looking at, okay, where's manipulation taking place? Because once I'm able to recognize manipulation, I know that distribution will always have to follow. So the way that we interpret this is by paying attention to, okay, what are the bigger stories which are now being told across the media? What are the masses led to believe? If we then pay attention to the charts, and the charts are exactly telling the opposing scenario, the opposing story, if you may wish, then you have a high probability trade setup. What the majority of people do wrong within the financial markets is that they go out here and they simply just trade based upon the information as it's coming out within the news releases, as it's coming out within the headlines, so to say, within their favorite newspapers, whatever. And that's traditional the way of investing, right? That's what the majority of people have been doing all of their lives. And when I speak to these older investors and I ask them, why do you buy this stock? Why do you buy this commodity? Why this? Why that? Etc. It's always because one person said within a news article that this would now be bullish, or that this would happen as a result of whatever policy shifts take place. I would like you to be able to detach yourself from that what is being told within the media. And that's the sole reason why I'm creating this video. I'm creating this video because I would like to become more aware of the reasons why prices actually move and down. Prices either moving towards an old area of liquidity, or it's drawing towards an old area of inefficiency. Those are the two reasons why prices going up and down all the time. And that's technically speaking, and I'm not going to touch on it too deep, because if you would like to research my technical perspective on the market, you can just go to other lectures on my YouTube channel and you can study there. However, when it comes to this belief and the topic of market manipulation, I would like to think about the following. If there are in fact entities who are in control of the delivery of price, and I'm not going to name any during this video because I know that the moment I would name certain families and certain established entities, this video is going to get either removed, my channel is going to get shadow banned, or my channel is going to get completely removed. So I'm not going to put myself at risk in that way. But you can just search on Google and you will find what I'm referring to. It's not hard. You just need to know what to look for. But when it comes to this perspective that everything is rigged, look, it's a weird feeling at first, where you begin to accept that the whole theory of markets being free and supply and demand being the reason why price goes up and down, that's false. And think about it, right? Why are we taught within schools during economic classes, etc., that all markets move based upon supply and demand, and that it's simply just a game of, okay, there has to be a lot of interest from the masses for the stock market to rise and whatever, right? Or the markets are dumping because the masses are fearful, etc. I would like you to start thinking about everything which I discussed during this discussion so far with you. And I know that this video is going to probably cause from some waves here and there, and I know that people are going to argue against everything which I have mentioned during this video. I know that there will be people that will try and say, but Zeus, you're wrong. Supply and demand is the reason why price goes up and down. Buying and selling pressure is the reason why markets go up or down, etc. And quite frankly, you can have those opinions, because all I'm sharing is my opinion. I'm not giving you any financial advice. I'm not telling you to buy or sell something. All that I'm sharing with you is how I was able to predict this whole bull run as it has occurred over the past couple of weeks. This second quarter has been phenomenal. There have been phenomenal buying opportunities inside of the panic from the masses. And that's the mindset which I want you to adopt, where you become able to detach yourself from that mindset of the herd and actually begin looking at the markets from an objective perspective, which is all based around time and price. Because the thing is, from a technical stance, it was obvious that we would be forming a swing low to expand towards the upside. But from a news perspective, from a narrative perspective, it wasn't clear yet to the masses. And exactly because it wasn't clear to the masses, because everyone was expecting lower prices, that's why the markets ran up the way that they did. And it has been a phenomenal expansion higher. Nasdaq is up about 30% within about a month time. And that right there provides every single week market make a buy model, market make a buy model, market make a buy model, market make a buy model again and again and again. And it's exactly in that understanding of this bigger picture as I'm outlining it to you, that you're able to see opportunities that others simply don't. And you might think, oh, everyone should know that the markets are rigged. Everyone should have this perspective. Everyone should begin seeing the markets for what they are. But when you think about it, you must accept that it will never happen. And the reason being is because every single time that people get into the markets and they learn about trading, they learn about investing, they learn about why price goes up and down, etc., they're always being led to believe the same freaking gospel, so to say. Everyone is being nurtured exactly the same. Why, oh why? Because that's what they want you to believe. They want you to believe that the markets are random. They want you to believe that you can't time the markets. They want you to believe that all markets go up and down based on buying and selling pressure. But once you detach yourself from that and you objectively look at, okay, this was what was happening in the world and this is how the markets reacted to it. Look, now you have all these guys on the line saying, look, the markets went higher because of this, this, and this, and this. But you don't see them call it out live. And that's what I exactly have been doing over the course of these past couple of weeks, where I kept on saying every single week, throughout my weekly reviews, throughout my daily reviews, throughout my analysis, which I was sharing, higher, 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 higher. And that right there is how I'm able to predict price. I don't react to price. I predict what's going to happen. And that right there is a fundamental difference between the way that I trade versus every single other trading theory out there. Because what the majority of people do is they wait for the indicator to give them a buy or sell signal. They wait for that specific zone to be reached and then they're going to trade from that zone or whatever theory they might be using. But at the end of the day, it's not about reacting. And that right there, I know, sets me apart from the majority of traders, because everyone is saying, oh, you should never try to predict the markets. You should never try to time the markets. You should never, go against the masses or whatever, right? But think about why those things, or those sensors, those one-liners, so to say, have become so-called famous one-liners within our industry. It's because they want you to believe that. There are absolutely objective ways of you being able to recognize manipulation. And once you recognize manipulation, distribution can be anticipated afterwards. So when you think about everything which I discussed during this video with you, and you begin to think about all these different puzzle pieces which were all present throughout the course of this past 2 months, and I know that some of you are probably just going to watch this video and going to think, oh, well, fun, you have this young guy who's speaking about this, etc. Probably no value at all in it, and you're going to click away and you're never going to research this at all. But there are going to be some of you who are going to take some time out of your day after having watched this video, and you're going to go into the charts and you're going to be looking for that what I outlined to you. All you have to do is literally at the beginning of 2025, vertical line. You put a vertical line on the open of January. You put a vertical line on the open of this second quarter, and you put a vertical line on the third quarter. If you see how we open up the second quarter and you saw the markets drop that heavily, but now all of a sudden we're near new highs, you should think to yourself, wait a minute, how is it possible that we saw such a big reversal taking place after there was such big panic in the markets? And exactly in that logic, you'll be able to see how time and price are the reason why the markets move up. It's all predefined, it's all planned out, and you can argue against it and you can say it's not fair. You can say, oh, it should be a free market, there shouldn't be entities which are in control of the delivery of price. And maybe that's true, maybe it shouldn't be this way, but it is this way. And I know that by me creating this video and by me discussing this topic publicly, because this is something I've never really touched on in this great detail publicly, and I was kind of debating as well whether or not I wanted to make this video for you. However, I realized that me creating this video is going to probably make you experience a lot of valuable moments, because I know a lot of people are now looking at where the markets are at now and they're completely like what the hell just happened? They're flabbergasted. They're in shock. They have no clue why price moved this way. And I hope that by me discussing these topics, it sheds some lights on why the markets move the way that they do. And when you think about the importance of being able to recognize these big price swings taking place, look, even if you're a day trader, even if you're focused on the short term, which I am, I mainly focus on the short term. That's where I excel. However, I'm also slowly, gradually getting into holding onto positions for weeks, if not months, like I've been doing with the meta position, of course, where I've already taken partials accordingly. But it's important to note that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether you're a swing trader, day trader. At the end of the day, you must be able to recognize what is the higher time frame order flow, what is the bigger picture which is now in play, because it's exactly in that bigger order flow that the lower time frame opportunities will present itself. You need to know direction, because once you know direction and you know exactly where IPTA is repricing towards, IPTA is the interbank price delivery algorithm, which is the common term for all the algorithms that are in control of the delivery of price. But when you know that is repricing, for example, towards the upside, and you know it's drawing towards that old inefficiency, drawing towards a premium array, you know that every single week is going to do one thing. It's going to open, low, expand, open, low, expand. And if you use that logic right there, not just for the weekly profile, but also for the daily profile, for the session profile, for the 90-minute cycle profile, for the 30-minute cycle profile, a whole new world is going to open up for you. So I hope that this sit down has made you experience some light bulb moments when it comes to the topic of market manipulation. And I hope that you are beginning to see the different puzzle pieces. And that's quite frankly the only thing which I can suggest to you to do. Just open your eyes, guys. Like, open your eyes and begin seeing what's going on in real time. And once you start to see this, you will never be looking at any chart the same way. And you will never be looking at any news event throughout the same way. And it's important to note that there will be certain events which you're going to experience in your lifetime, which are going to be black swan events, which are going to be events that are going to be completely out of the blue. Right? I'm not going to name, but you can just research, and there are a few black swan events which occurred. However, when it comes to everything that governments are involved in or big companies are involved in, nothing is random. And that's what I would like to end this lecture with. I hope that you found it insightful. Please let me know if you would like to see more sit-down videos like these in which I discuss a specific topic and share my thoughts on it. I hope that you took some value from it, and I want to wish you good luck in your studies. Be safe.